Hello everyone, my name is Fortune. I am from the media department and today I have with me Daniel Francis, the MP of Bexley Heath and Crayford.
Good to see you.
So today we have some questions to ask you.
Okay.
Firstly, what inspired you to pursue a career in politics and become an MP?
Oh well, so 30 years ago I was an A-level student in Welling, and there were two things. We had a government that had been in control for a long time, a Conservative government that I felt had done damage to the country and that we needed to have an equal and fairer country. And also at that time in Welling was the headquarters of the British National Party, a fascist organisation, and there was a lot of disorder and trouble on the streets of Welling as a result. And so those two things really made me join the Labour Party 30 years ago this week, in fact. And I did that and never really looked back. I was a councillor for 20 years and now I'm a Member of Parliament.
That's amazing. Look at that. What are the key issues you're currently focusing on in your role as MP for Bexley Heath and Crayford?
So I've been the MP now for 12 weeks. So I'm still set up the office, but I'm just trying to get out and see a lot of the community groups. You know, I know the area. I was brought up in Belvedere. I've lived in the borough all my life, but in Parliament I'm going to hopefully do a lot of work around health and particularly social care, and also supporting disabled people and children who in that situation, particularly in schools and the education settings. So I'm just out doing lots of visits at the moment and just, you know, getting to see people, some of which I know and some of which I'm meeting for the first time.
So what steps would you advise young people to follow to get in the position you're in right now?
Well, it is hard work, and it doesn't always come easily, and obviously it depends on the politics of the day. You know, we've got a Labour government again for the first time in 14 years, but I would say, you know, get involved in the political party that you're interested in, and you know, and then, you know, once you're involved, there are always positions, whether that's working for that party or working elsewhere in policy areas, becoming a councillor like I did, and then, you know, you'll see, you know, if you're very lucky like I've ended up being, then you end up in my position. But there are lots of opportunities in politics.
That's great. That's great. So would you say they should start by voting, signing up to vote, or getting involved in politics on social media, or what? What would you say the first step should be?
Social media these days. When I was 17, there was no such thing. There was no internet either. I know it sounds crazy, all mobile phones. But yeah, I joined the Labour Party when I was 17, and then got involved much more a few years later, really, when I was in my early 20s. But yeah, I would say, you know, look what's out there on social media. In fact, a lot of people that have applied for jobs in my office, because I've just set my office up, the ones that weren't successful, really, I have just tried to feed back to them. You know, I think, you know, if you were more involved, most probably in a political setting, and that might not just be in the Labour Party, it might be a particular interest you've got. It might be around, you know, Labour Party has lots of different organisations within it, around housing, around transport, around LGBTQT rights. So, you know, get involved in those networks that you're interested in, and then that also leads to other jobs and opportunities in life.
Adding on to your inspiration, was there a particular politician that you looked up to when you were considering your role in politics?
Well, there's one politician I'm most sure I joined, but I certainly didn't look up to her, and that was Margaret Thatcher. You know, I first got involved with the Labour Party when John Smith was leader, who you most probably won't know who John Smith was. John Smith was leader of the Labour Party, but died suddenly in 1994, and he really was somebody who fought for a fair and equal society. But if you ask me, really, in Labour Party history, it's Barbara Castle, and again, you won't know who Barbara Castle is, but Barbara Castle was really one of the very first women to be in the cabinet in Harold Wilson's Labour government, was the only woman around that cabinet table with 20 odd men, but fought for lots of things today that we would say, why on earth did we not have that? But the time was derided. She fought and ensured women had equal pay in the workplace, and was derided by the press for trying to introduce the breathalyser and the seatbelt. But they are things today which we would never ever get rid of. They've brought safer driving standards, and Barbara Castle's legacy was equal pay for all.
That's great. Who was the most inspiring Prime Minister that you looked up to when you were debating a career in politics, and why?
I think most really Clement Attlee. Obviously, I spent a lot of time in Labour Party when Tony Blair and Gordon Brown were Labour Prime Ministers, and I've got a lot of time for them. But Clement Attlee, if you look back to 1945, the country had just come out of war. There was a real lack of social housing. His government built a lot of social housing. They were there at the table when NATO was formed to try and bring security in the world. But more so, of course, they created both the modern welfare state and the National Health Service. And so Clement Attlee's legacy really does still live with us today.
That's great to hear. So would you say the main reason you stepped into politics is to give the people a voice?
Well, to give the people a voice, and it's still those things that I believed in when I joined 30 years ago, to have a more fairer and equal society. You know, in terms of housing, we have a housing crisis where housing isn't affordable, particularly for the youngest in society. We need more public investment in our health and education. You know, the green agenda has transformed tremendously in the last 30 years. You know, we've got to understand how serious the climate crisis is and trying to address that. And clearly, yeah, we need to bring people with us and have people involved in that discussion. We're never always going to agree on everything. But, you know, to have the community involved in that process, and that's certainly what I intend to do as MP, to be out there much more, having, you know, much more public meetings and engagement to try and understand what those issues are and be raising them in Parliament.
That's great to hear. We look forward to see what you have to do for the society. I really do. And yeah, so we have some quick fire questions for you. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Okay. What is the last book that you have read?
Do you know what? I really don't get a lot of time to read, and I can't actually remember the name of it, but I was very involved with a job in my previous life, getting a football club stadium built, and the club, AFC Wimbledon, wrote a book about that, and I was quoted in it, so that was the last book that I wrote.
What's your favourite pizza topping?
Oh dear me. I think it would just be cheese, to be honest. I'm very plain. Sorry.
You need to get some barbecue. You need to get some chicken on there. Yeah.
Oh, actually, now you're tempting me. But
you should get that. What's your favourite board game?
I'm made to play Monopoly by my children a lot, so it's not necessarily my favourite, but that's what I play.
Oh, do they beat you?
Yeah, I've got a very astute child, so she does sometimes beat me, yeah.
Last question. If you could travel in time, what period of time would you travel to?
Dear me, that's an interesting one. I think back to the Egyptian era, maybe. You know, it's a fascinating era, particularly architecturally. Very clever what they did, really, when you consider, you know, what they had at the time.
Interesting. That's great. Yeah, so that is all the questions we have for you today. It's an honour to have you here with us today at LSEC Colleges. It's great meeting you, Mr. MP.
Good to see you. All the best. Thanks so much.